XO 360, their new flagship. Now if you're familiar with the range of XOs, you know the previous flagship, the XO 270 behind us, does have a small amount of accommodation, but really they're the ultimate in credit card and toothbrush cruising, able to get you from A to B very quickly in any sort of weather. However, this boat is different in that it's grown to the point where it can now squeeze 2 cabins inside, one particularly respectable one. But of course XO, the key thing is the driving experience. So let's head forward, have a look at the helm area and talk about what that was like. So the good news, in true XO style, the driving experience is absolutely terrific. We had some horrible steep, closely spaced seas out there today, which you'll see from the video. The boat handled all those with aplomb, whether it's upwind, downwind, a beam sea, hurtling around corners at a great rate of knots. The boat is very sure-footed, and of course it has the huge advantage that it has this incredibly tough aluminium hull, which makes it surprisingly quiet, but also very strong and stiff. We're on the very first prototype boat, and it appears to be still work in progress. Now, one of those areas is the helm ergonomics here, which really just hasn't been sorted out particularly well. So we have, for instance, an offset wheel that is quite a stretch actually, unless you're all the way forward on the seat. Throttles are okay, but some of the secondary instruments like the trim tab controls here aren't really very visible and usable. Sight lines over the bow are pretty good. This boat runs incredibly level, only about 3.5 degrees, so even a short arse like me can see quite well over the top. Hopefully once XO have repositioned things around this area, I think the driver's lot will be better still. So this boat is available with a limited range of engine options, which I think is a really good thing. This Volvo joystick gives the clues what's fitted here. We've got the biggest Volvo engine option here, that's the twin 370 D6 stern drives, and with those in place we clocked a very healthy 42 knots, so you can expect a little bit less patch from the Yanmars. And the 300s D4s, sure, fit them if you want, but I'm not so sure that that's a good idea. This boat runs so well and balances so well with the weight in the back that I would stick with those engines. In one sense, the place we're sitting here, this is the thing that represents the biggest change when you jump from the previous flagship, the 270, up into this 360. It's a full-size grown-up cabin with a huge V-berth here, almost 2 meters long, proper hanging locker here, and even better still, a really terrific heads compartment in here. Before I show you the heads, let me show you this interesting little privacy feature which shuts off the forward cabin. This heads compartment came as a real surprise. I had not expected something in basically a lean, mean fighting machine, as it were, to have so much space inside. But there's towering headroom in here, lots of elbow room, a really beautifully finished Korean type countertop here, great shower, fantastic mirror for makeup and the like, and light airy space. Really couldn't be much better. So XO have decided to go for a pretty unconventional layout up here, which has 3 pairs of forward-facing seats, certainly a first for me anyway. Of course this does change quite rapidly into a more conventional layout by dint of simply flipping this up, and then we're left with a dinette here. Now, you have to bear in mind that this is the prototype boat and there are a huge number of changes planned for this. Whether these will include some of the things I'd like to see changed, I don't know yet, but possibly. Certainly one thing is that this large dinette here is ostensibly, according to XO, designed for 6 people to get around, but personally I think that's a bit unworkable really. You're sat too low on this bench seat, even though the bench seat is very high. I think actually what would make a lot more sense is to leave the table here, accept that this is a 4-person boat with a 4-person dinette. That will give you more space for a passageway here, and perhaps replace this, what I think is a largely redundant bench seat here, with more storage. Extend the galley down here. We could still leave the lockers underneath clear and have half-height units running here. I think that would be an improvement. There are 1 or 2 other things that I think are going to be changing, and that is the sharp edges. This is a 42 knot boat, remember, and at 42 knots you need to be careful about what you're bumping against. So I think things like these sharp corners on pretty much everything, all the furniture, here all the way through the boat, I think that for me would be a really important and good change to make on a boat of this type. Here in the saloon, two of my favourite details, which won't change thankfully because they're so terrific, is this fantastic twin pane sunroof overhead, which is a marvellous thing to have, and it's supplemented by this this fixed sunroof forward as well. And just generally the visibility out of this boat is absolutely fantastic for the helmsman at any speed and any angle of trim. It's a really safe boat to be piloting. So I'm sitting here in the second cabin, not quite as palatial as the first, as you can see, tucked under the raised area of the dinette. The bed's really big here, 2 full-size adults, no problem at all. Quite how comfortable you feel, I think, will depend on whether you're sleeping on this side where it's more open, or whether you're auditioning for your Dracula in a coffin play, tucked under this overhead here. But certainly plenty of berth size and berth length down here. I'm standing in one of my favourite bits of the boat, actually. I think one of the best and most ingeniously designed. You have a conventional side deck on the other side, but here you have a full walk around, and of course just alongside the side door here. So in terms of sort of single-handed handling of this boat, it's going to be an absolute doddle to manoeuvre this boat in and out of a marina on your own, whip out the side door, pin down the boat on a spring. And there's a further bonus here as well, which is this just perfectly placed fender locker and warp locker forward, which is just where you need it. It saves you carting all the fenders back into the cockpit. So we're standing in the cockpit here, which is one of the areas which is a sort of work in progress a little bit. Most of it's sorted out, so we've got these nice lockers under here, beautifully finished. Some of the moulding work on this boat is absolutely terrific, but there is a question mark over whether some owners will want something a little more enclosed and deeper and safer at the back, especially if they've got people who are new to boating or youngsters on board. But generally a very accessible place for water sports, of course. It's absolutely fantastic. You could haul your windsurf or your wakeboard on here, no problem at all, but it might just be a little low for some people. Pretty straightforward engine room access here. Just one big hatch into the back. And I have to say, I like builders who just make the whole of the cockpit floor the hatch, rather than some sort of tiny little thing in the middle with an emergency hatch outside in case things go wrong. Just gives you the best possible access, which in here is of course terrific. And yet again, evidence of really good, high quality and very sturdy mouldings on the underside here, you know, beautifully finished. So our test on the prototype XO360, what has it taught us? Well, this new flagship embodies all of the normal XO virtues: a fantastic drive, incredibly solid hull. Of course, being a prototype, there are quite a few details which do need to be sorted inside, but once those change, what we'll have here is a fantastic package.